Hello, hello. So I've decided to do a quick video on the Resident Evil board game Kickstarter that's coming this Tuesday. Since I recommended Resident Evil 2, the board game, for Halloween this year, I figured I might as well talk about this real quick. I'm not going to go overly in depth with, what's new and all that, because Steamforged Games has done a couple blog articles and a couple gameplay demos. For instance, they did one with a YouTube channel called BoardGameCo a week or two ago. They demonstrated one of the scenarios on Tabletopia. Recommend watching it. It's kind of long, but it demonstrates a couple of the new mechanics that I'll be talking about in a little bit more detail. So I recommend looking at that in case you're curious. But I've also kind of included a bit of a wish list for things I'd like to see in the game. Part of me is kind of hoping that Steamforged will hear them somehow, and maybe the ideas expressed therein will be realized in the final product. I don't know. Rob kind of has the crazy notion that it'd listen to our Doom Eternal wish list. So we'll throw it out there. We'll see where it goes. So let's dive into the new features, or really what we know about them so far. Just kind of as a general overview thing. So far we know there will be a core game with two main expansions. The Bleak Outpost, which will cover the guardhouse and include the Neptune and Plant 42 bosses, and then Into the Darkness, which will cover the caves and the third floor of the mansion, and will include the Yawn and Black Tiger bosses. I assume there will be other, smaller expansions. We'll probably get a 3D door / terrain pack, which I'm kind of hoping that they bring to retail this time around, because the door tiles are kind of not the best, and that's a big complaint a lot of people have about RE2 and RE3. But there'll probably be some sort of gameplay modification type expansion as well, something a little bit smaller. But these both sound pretty cool. Oh, and with the core game, apparently we'll be getting around 18 scenarios, which will translate into a little over 20 hours of gameplay. Which is awesome, because RE2 only had 8 scenarios in the core box, and then RE3 had about 15. And RE2 was linear, but 3 was sort of non-linear in the core game. And you could kind of choose which scenarios you wanted to do, and that's what they're going to be doing with Resident Evil. And speaking of, the non-linearity in the scenarios, one of the newest mechanics and one of the, biggest is the exploration mechanic that they're bringing. Now, in the first two games, I know it sounds weird saying that, but by that I mean RE2 and RE3, each scenario you got to see the entire layout of the map, and as well as where the items, certain enemies were, and the typewriters and stuff like that, and you could kind of strategize a bit. But with Resident Evil, the map will be built as you explore it. And this will be done by using a series of cards for each scenario. You'll start out on a couple tiles, and then as you open doors, you'll find a new piece of the map. That seems kind of neat. I like the idea of not knowing what's ahead as much. The only problem I kind of see with this is maybe you might run out of table space, or it might get all weird. You might not know how to allocate it. And you could just flip over all the cards and build it in its entirety from the beginning, but I don't know. We'll just have to see how it is. It intrigues me. So we'll just have to see. And kind of building off this new exploration mechanic is the encounter deck. This determines, what you'll find in each new tile you explore. Because basically, each tile will have a threat level assigned to it, and that threat level will determine how many cards you draw from this encounter deck. Could be, you could flip a card and you might be in an empty room, an empty tile. But next one, oh, could be a zombie or a corpse. So it's similar to what they've done before, where instead of, a deck, you would have a certain color-coded table you'd roll on, 1 through 6 die, and that would determine what you find in the new tile you've just stepped on. And this seems like a little bit of a quicker way to do it. You don't have to refer to another source. You can just immediately draw however many cards as soon as you step on the tile. You have to have the scenario booklet on hand. Yeah, it seems like a good idea for speeding things up, and apparently this encounter deck is going to evolve as you go through the campaign. More cards will be added to it, and I assume sometimes cards will be taken out of it. Kind of like how they handled the tension deck in Resident Evil 3. So an entirely new feature is missions, which there's a separate mission deck, and depending on certain circumstances you can draw from it, and you can send one of your reserve characters on a mission to do some random thing, and you're kind of doing it in the background while you're exploring and completing the main scenario. Kind of wish that it was explained a bit better in the demo I watched, but it's something different. It changes things up. I just hope it's not one of those things that's gonna just bog down the gameplay, or something you completely forget about. Because the one that was demonstrated seemed kind of active, but it also sounds like some of them might be in the background, and I know it's sometimes easy to forget stuff like that. So I just hope that's something that they're aware of and that they're trying to make sure is, not as much of an issue. Speaking of reserve characters, so certain characters will have a reserve-only version of their card, so you can't actively play them in a scenario, but they can be in the background to run missions for you. The only one that's been revealed so far is Brad Vickers, who will apparently get a regular playable version, which will make him the only character to appear in all 3 of the board games. It has also been hinted that Richard Aiken will be a reserve only, though I assume he'll also get a fully playable variant as well. Then another new thing that sounds pretty neat, and they haven't really gone into full detail yet either, are puzzles. Yes, puzzles will be a part of the Resident Evil board game. Now, usually in the video games, it's a lot of just key hunting and just knowing where to put stuff, but remember in the original game, there were a couple that were a little bit more, a little less straightforward. So I'm kind of curious how they're going to work that out for the board game, and make it replayable for one. It sounds like some of them involve switches and doors, but I wouldn't really necessarily call those puzzles as much as just, changing how you can move through the map. But I don't know, we'll have to see. Now on to the wish list. So 2 of my kind of big wishes for this board game have already kind of been confirmed. Well, one of them has, and then the other is about 85%. So the big one is this going to be based on the 2002 remake as opposed to the original game, and that appears to be so. I do love the original game, but I don't think it would have been as fun if they stuck just to that. There wouldn't have been as much stuff for them to work with compared to if they decide to do the remake, which of course they're doing. The only reason why I really bring this up is because I think a lot of people were confused when they were doing the Kickstarters for their other Resident Evil board games. They thought they would incorporate elements from the remakes of those games, which were more recent, and I don't think were out at the time that the Kickstarters had started. I think the Resident Evil 2 board game came out like a year or so before, or the remake of the video game came out, and then same for RE3. So I thought that was just some sort of strict rule that they were sticking to, that they were told that they had to by Capcom, but it appears it's not the case. It's just because of timing. Anyway, I'd rather just have them stick to the classic games anyway, but the 2002 remake is a classic. Definitely more of a classic than the other 2 remake games, so I'm glad that they're incorporating that. But my other, 85% wish is, seeing all the STARS members as fully playable characters, even, the ones that don't exactly make it, to put it lightly. Because that's a neat thing about the RE2 and RE3 board games, is that there are several characters that you can rescue and keep alive that canonically die in the video games, and kind of helps you create your own what-if scenarios, and also adds to the possibility of replayability, because you might not always be able to save them, and that way the experience is different every time. It'll be neat to play as characters like Joseph Frost and Kenneth, and I especially look forward to Kenneth's Don't Lose Your Head special ability, which I don't know what that would be. I just like the name, and I hope they use it for something. Sherwin, write that down. Oh, really? I don't care if that's in bad taste. It's hilarious. You know it. But getting on to my actual wishes for this board game. So, a big part of the story in both the original game and the remake is that there's a traitor among the STARS team, and as well as some other characters that, the player character isn't, they're a little suspicious of, let's just say that. And while these are fixed, like it's always the same people in the video game story, I'd kind of like to see it be randomized in the board game. Instead of it being, the guy that it's going to be, it instead is a complete curveball. Add some nuance and definitely some replayability, and maybe, this would be crazy, maybe there's no traitor at all. Not really sure how that would work, but different idea to explore. Figured I'd just throw that out there. And then my other big wish is, me being the, let's just say, intense guy I am when it comes to properties that I like, kind of putting it politically correct. I really like it when very obscure or maybe forgotten elements of things are brought back and explored in, new adaptations of, old games and stuff. So I kind of want to see them use a lot of the old, like some of the old and random stuff that might have sort of been lost to time or memory for a lot of people. I know Sherwin Williams has hinted that he's really keen on including the obscure items and weapons from the remake, but I wonder, and I'm hoping that will extend to the various ports and re-releases of the original game. Like, will we see the custom Beretta or zombie forest from the director's cut? The MAC-10 FN Mini-Me or Dum Dum rounds from the PC port? The Ticks, Zombie Wesker, the Gold Tyrant, hell, the battle game, an entirely separate mode, all from the Saturn port. Probably not, that's why I'm throwing it out there, so hopefully someone from Steamforged hears this and kind of gets that thrown into the mix, because yeah, I live for weird, obscure stuff like that, because it's fun. Alright, that's pretty much all I had. Not a whole lot. Yeah, this is a short little video. So thank you for listening. Please leave a like. Please leave a comment. Yeah, just leave a comment on what you think. Probably not a whole lot of Resident Evil fans in our small subscriber base, but probably a lot more board game fans, I can tell you that. So yeah, just if you checked out the other stuff I mentioned in the intro, does this game look cool to you? Does it intrigue you? What do you like about it? What do you hate? Stuff like that. Because I like comments. So yeah, I look forward to reading those. So anyway, this has been me, Connor, and Rob's not here right now, man. Bye.